They say the Appalachians were never tamed, not by man, not by God, and if you listen close enough, the mountains still whisper what they took. You're about to hear 3 stories that were never meant to be told. Stay till the end if you want to sleep again. Eli had been hiking the back trails for years, a quiet escape from the noise of the world. But there was one valley he'd never entered, a stretch of forest where fog clung too low and birds refused to sing. Locals called it the Hollow. They said sound behaved differently there, like the air remembered voices long gone. He thought it was folklore until he heard it himself, a faint harmonic hum drifting between the trees, low and layered, as if the mountain itself was exhaling a memory. He lifted his recorder, smiling at the eerie beauty of it. But when he played it back that night, the sound was no longer beautiful. It was alive. The hum deepened into something structured, melodic, almost human. Then, just before the tape ended, one trembling voice broke through the harmony and whispered a single word. Eli. He froze, rewound, played it again, same whisper, same voice, his name. He laughed it off. Interference, pareidolia, tricks of the mind. But the next morning, before he even touched the recorder, the whisper came again, faint, behind him, in the still air of his tent. At first, he just listened. Then he began to hum along, unconsciously at first, then deliberately, sinking his breath to the rhythm that echoed through the valley. He couldn't sleep without it, couldn't think in silence anymore. By the 3rd night, he'd pitched camp right beside the mouth of an old mine shaft, a collapsed one sealed decades ago. Locals had mentioned the story once, a mining accident, bodies never recovered, a dozen men trapped beneath the rock. They said when storms rolled in, you could still hear their voices. That night, the storm came. Rain tore through the trees, thunder rumbling like shifting stone. And beneath it all, the hum. Deeper, closer, alive. Eli's flashlight flickered as he approached the rock face. The recorder in his hand vibrated, distorting the air around it. He pressed his ear to the stone. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then a breath, long, ragged, human, followed by dozens more, rising in chorus, a desperate harmony that clawed its way through the rock, shaping itself into something that almost sounded like prayer. They were never buried, only entombed alive, and what he'd been hearing wasn't an echo. It was them still trying to breathe. The storm passed by dawn. Eli was gone. When rescue teams found his camp a week later, everything was intact. Tent zipped, boots neatly placed, food untouched. Just a small black recorder sitting on the ground, still running. The hum played softly in the background, same rhythm, same tone, but layered over it, a new voice, perfectly in tune. In a small mountain town, there's an old motel that's been empty for years. No guests, no lights, except for one room on the 2nd floor, the one they call her window. Locals say the light in that room never goes out, even during storms, even when the power fails. That window still glows, cold and pale, like moonlight trapped behind glass. Drivers passing at night say they've seen her, a woman standing by that window, face pale as frost, lips moving silently, like she's warning them. And every driver says the same thing, she's always there, watching, mouthing words no one can hear. One night, a traveler came through town. He'd heard the stories, and he didn't believe a word of them. He wanted to see it for himself, so he booked the room, the one no one else would. When he entered, The air was colder than outside. The bed was made, but the sheets were damp, and the window wouldn't close. He tried, but every time he pushed it shut, it breathed frost inward, like something outside was alive. That night, he didn't sleep. He watched the window instead, and somewhere past midnight, the glass began to fog, not from his breath, but from hers. The next morning, the traveler went to the front desk. He asked the old clerk who that woman was, the one in the window. The clerk didn't answer. He just slid the dusty guest registry across the counter. There was one name, written over and over, the last guest to ever stay in that room. She never checked out, but her eyes did. They found them, pressed into the glass. Now the window reflects nothing, not the town, not the stars, not even him. They say if you hike deep enough into the Appalachians, the forest starts to remember you. Every trail looks the same until one starts looking back. Eli and Mara thought they were just camping, but some places don't care where you pitch your tent. They only care that you stay. The woods were quiet that weekend. Too quiet. Fog clung to the trees like breath on glass, and the air smelled heavy. Old, like rain that never fell. They'd been hiking for hours when they saw it. A rotting cabin, slouched between the trees, its roof half collapsed, chimney cracked like a broken spine. They passed it once, then again. No matter which trail they took, it waited for them, always the same, always watching. Mara laughed it off. Just lost, she said. But when Eli checked the compass, the needle spun like the forest hadn't decided which way was north. That night, the wind whispered around their tent like footsteps. Eli couldn't sleep. He swore he heard something, a low, steady hum, like wood creaking under breath. He unzipped the tent flap and froze. The cabin was closer now, maybe 50 yards away. Its single window glowed with a faint orange light, like someone inside was awake, waiting. By morning it sat right where their campfire had been, ashes scattered at its doorstep. The same logs they'd burned were stacked neatly beside it. Mara tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. Eli just stared at the smoke drifting from the chimney, because the smell wasn't wood. It was sweet and burned. They stepped inside. The door sighed open like it had been waiting. Dust floated through beams of weak light, and on a table in the center of the room, 2 plates, still warm, each one filled with steak and beans, exactly what they had eaten the night before. Eli whispered, "Someone's been watching us." But when he turned to leave, the doorway was gone. Another room stood there instead. Same table, same plates, only colder, older. Each step forward led to another version of the same cabin. The walls warped and shifted, boards bending inward as if the whole place was breathing with them. Mara found a cracked window and looked outside. What she saw froze her blood. There was their tent, still zipped, and through the nylon she could see themselves sleeping inside, perfectly still. The truth hit like a blade. The cabin wasn't following them. It never moved. They had. They'd been walking through its endless, rotting rooms all along, looping again and again, like trapped thoughts in a dying brain, like insects in a jar, hitting the same glass over and over and over. Weeks later, rangers found their tent, zipped, untouched, food neatly packed, fire pit cold. But a mile off the trail where no maps ever reached stood a cabin no one remembered building. Some nights, hikers say they can see a faint light flickering through its cracks, And if you stand still long enough, you'll hear two voices whispering inside, asking which trail leads home. The woods don't move. You do. In the heart of the Appalachians, the mountains keep their secrets buried deep, but sometimes the forest lets one slip through. If you ever hear your name echo between the trees, don't answer. If you want to hear more stories like this, check out my playlist,